Hello and welcome to this week's Bisq growth call. For anyone who's new, Bisq is the only decentralized Bitcoin to fiat and crypto to crypto exchange. That's a fully decentralized network where the users are always in control. They custody their own funds and they run their own node, and they keep their own private data without maintaining their privacy and control of their funds and private keys at all times. We are going to be talking a bit today about last week's liquidity weeks. We're also going to be talking about how to kickstart new markets, see if we can come up with any ideas. It's a recurring topic. And we're also going to be talking about a survey that's been done with version 0.7.1, where users were able to give their opinion about how to improve Bisq. And finally, we'll talk about China, and we might talk about some of the new things coming. First of all, the liquidity weeks we had from the 2nd to the 8th of July, we had two running at the same time for the first time ever, Monero and Swiss francs. And frankly, they were a bit of a disaster. The Swiss franc market had almost no trades whatsoever, so volume was not changed at all by the liquidity week compared to previous weeks. And we certainly did not manage to reach the stated goal of 5 users placing at least 2 offers each. So, you know, we never saw more than 5 offers on the order book at any time. Monero was different. Monero, there was some volume, there were offers, there were some trades, but no significant change compared to previous weeks. So we haven't seen an increase in volume, and we haven't seen more users coming to use this on liquidity week. Now, why was this a failure? We don't know. That's the short answer, but we have some ideas. First of all, overall volumes are lower this week. Were lower this week because of the start of the summer. We also normally try to do liquidity weeks for currency pairs where there's critical mass, or at least, you know, enough people asking for it that we can expect the people who ask for it to actually participate. In the case of the Swiss franc, we've never had any significant volume or a very populated order book, but we did have a poll on which liquidity week to do next, and the Swiss franc won over some other options. So I don't know, maybe it's easier to vote on a Twitter poll than it is to run your Bisq client and leave it running, especially when the weather's nice outside. Monero, I guess I'm a bit less familiar about. In fact, I didn't participate. I was going to, but in the end, I didn't find the time, so I can't say much. But we were expecting some new users, but in fact, what we've seen, the activity we've seen over the past week, just as the normal activity we've seen in the past weeks, Monero is still a fairly successful market on Bisq. But I guess we didn't manage to contact interested parties to try and join over this week. We're going to rethink a bit the whole liquidity week idea, because we want to make it something useful, not just a rote that we do as a matter of course. And I think one of the ways we could make sure that they offer value is to try and do a sort of Kickstarter of people asking for it. So say, for example, if we get 5 people asking for liquidity week and saying that they will participate, then we launch it. Or maybe if for a certain currency there's not enough people to do a liquidity week, we might be able to do something smaller, like say 1 hour or 1 day. Which brings me to the next topic, which is we're seeing new markets such as the Vietnamese dong and the Thai baht suddenly appear in the offer book, with hardly any trades being done. So, which makes us think, you know, there's not enough participants to actually cross orders, but they but there's obviously some interest there. So if you're in Vietnam or if you're in Thailand and you want to try out Bisq, now is a good time. But again, this brings me to the fact that there's a coordination problem. We normally have, we've seen this before in other markets where we have, say, for example, Mexico or Argentina, we have a couple of people trying it out, but they don't do it at the same time, which means that, no trades actually take place. And as I always say, it takes two to trade. So maybe if we see this happening, we can say, okay, guys, we've seen two people on two different locations try to buy or sell with Vietnamese dong. Why don't you both try to come together on next Monday at this specific time, for example? That way, there's a minimum of opportunity cost. There's a minimum of time wasted. You just, turn on your node at that time, turn on your Bisq client, and if you see it, there's anyone there. If not, you wait 5 minutes, and if not, there's nobody else interested. But yeah, the question of how to kickstart new markets is always on our minds. We keep talking about China. We keep talking about many countries in Latin America. We keep talking about Nigeria, India, especially with all the news we've had this week of further restrictions on Indian exchanges. And of course, like every week, and it's worth reminding every week, we've had a couple of exchanges being hacked. Even one that was purportedly a decentralized exchange, the Bancor, got hacked and had withdrawals and funding blocked. And obviously, if you're not in full control of your funds, it's not a decentralized exchange. If funds can be blocked by the exchange operator, it's not decentralized. It's easy. If they can stop you from withdrawing your funds, it's not decentralized. So that's the reason why Bisq is so important and why decentralized exchanges are so important, because they are censorship resistant and they cannot be hacked or blocked or regulated out of operations like all the centralized exchanges in China, for example. Right, so yeah, so we were talking about how to kickstart new markets. One of the ways to do it that we've discussed is with market makers, right? So if you're interested in starting a market in your country, starting a market in Bisq, and you already trade on OTC markets or you trade on local Bitcoins on other platforms, and you think, you might be able to get some volume on Bisq, a good way to do it is to be a market maker, which means you place buy and sell offers and wait, and then try and attract people to take those offers. And we have seen, and some people have mentioned that first timers like to do small trades. So it's probably a good idea, especially now that Bitcoin fees are very low, and you can do, 1 Satoshi per byte confirmations in the next block sometimes, or maybe in the next 2 blocks. It might be a good time to try this. And if you place small offers, worth 0.01 or 0.001 Bitcoin on both sides of the offer book, that's a way to test the waters and see if there's anyone interested. And once you place those 2 offers, the next step obviously is to do scaling up. So you can do 3 on each side, and then people will see a bit of liquidity, a bit of depth to the market. And so after you place those, you wait, and then you go and contact the local communities. You talk to the meetup groups, you talk to forums, talk to whatever people in your local community meet to talk about Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies, and wherever they meet to trade. But before that, you've created a market, you created some depth to the offer book, so that when people you talk to come to Bisq, they have something to do. They have some offer there to take, whether it is to buy or to sell Bitcoin. And of course, once you started the minimum of activity and you've managed to get 2 or 3 people to trade, then the next step is to try and get us to add the favorite payment methods, try and get the Bisq team to try and get translations done, tutorials done, anything that will help further adoption. Christoph or Manfred, is there anything you'd like to add to that?
Not in specific, but as you mentioned already, I think we're running slowly into markets where we don't have such an active community already. So it's hard to bootstrap the market from our perspective. Of course, we didn't do so much marketing for these two liquidity weeks, but personally, I'm not sure if it would have changed a lot regarding that. What we can do, what we have already in the growth repository, we do have issues for a couple of markets which are not bootstrapped already. For example, Chinese yen, I think, and Russian rubles. So if people just show up and put their like there, and let's say if we have 5 people willing to participate in a liquidity week or to bootstrap a market, we'll do as suggested. Yeah, but in general, as we are not based in most of these markets, it's really hard for us to support in market making in this certain market. So we do need local support. And
it's
also
got to be bottom up, right? There's got to be demand for it, and there's got to be people willing to volunteer. I'm in China next week. I'm going to try and drum up some interest. But yeah, we have to have someone local who's interested in creating a market coming to Bisq, and they can do it without asking for permission or without asking for help. But obviously, if they ask for help, because we can do something to help them, like add payment methods, translations, etc.
Yeah. I'm also not sure if we really need so many local translations. We do. There's a lot of activity at the moment in our translation tool, Transifex. So if you're interested translating Bisq, it's really easy. And I think we have nearly 100% ready for Vietnamese. And also they started to clean up the Russian translation, a group of people, and also tackling at the moment Persian. So there's lots of stuff going on, but in general, all translations lack sometimes. So the English version is very good. And before we started the call, Manfred mentioned already, at the moment, most of our arbitrators mainly speak English or maybe another language like German or Spanish. So actually, people who want to trade at the moment need to understand English at a certain extent, at least. So, but yeah, everyone can trade, especially on crypto trades. There, I don't know if we had any arbitration issue at all. So it should work seamlessly, and seamlessly. Yeah. My English is that bad, so luckily I'm not translating most of the clients. Yeah, so for altcoin trades, we don't have any issues normally, and you can also, if you're not speaking English, it's also easy to trade on Bisq in that regard. Sorry, Manfred, do you want to point something out?
No, I just want to say from my experience, from my past experience as arbitrator with altcoins, there are very, very few cases in general, and when then it's usually a technical problem that the explorer is not working on some altcoin or whatever. But yeah, I think I don't remember that there was any real dispute. I think maybe with Monero sometime when they had a hard fork or whatever, that it was not displayed on the other user. So, but yeah.
Regarding that, Manfred, we had a question in the chat from Nyon4567 regarding the atomic swaps. We had this discussion already in the past, but maybe can you repeat?
Yeah, I wanted to answer already, but somehow Google doesn't allow me to post it. Yeah, the atomic swaps, I think they are a little bit overhyped topic. I mean, they are cool technically, but the problem in a decentralized manner, at least, is the resource and engineering effort for the interesting coins. I mean, you can do it with not super huge effort. Even then, it's quite a lot of effort, of course. But with something like Litecoin or other clones of Bitcoin, which are very similar to Bitcoin, the effort is acceptable. But then you still need to implement the resolvement of these transactions and the wallet and everything in Bisq. So you would not have only one implementation of Bitcoin J in Bisq, but you would have 3, 4, 5. and that doesn't scale endlessly.
But
So
plus, we don't want to do that until we can do it with Lightning, right?
Yeah, with Lightning it would probably also make more sense. But also, yeah, with Lightning, I can give a little bit of update. I was at this conference in Lisbon. It was a fantastic conference, and I spoke with a few Lightning developers and so. And the main question was for the current trade protocol, which is based on Bitcoin multisig. And the main question is if something like multisig is possible with Lightning. The short answer is not at the moment. There are some ideas to do it, basically to mimic multisig by multiple commitments. So you not have only one hash time-locked commitment, but you have several, and then you combine it. But that's just rough ideas, and nobody has implemented this yet in Lightning, and it's questionable whenever this would come. So at the moment, there would be probably technically not a way to, as far as I understood from the feedback what I got with people, to implement the trade protocol on Lightning. But the good news is we have an alternative, probably much better solution anyway, with the BSQ, that we are securing the trade by BSQ bonds. And yeah, but back to the atomic swap. Yeah, the main problem is the interesting coins like Monero and Ethereum, if they're possible at all. I mean, at least Ethereum should be possible. Monero has also now multisig, so technically it should be possible to have all the features, also time-locked transactions and multisig. But then with such coins, it's a huge effort because you have to implement the whole this whole infrastructure and the trade protocol for another, and the whole infrastructure on Java that you are getting the transactions from Monero and so on. And so I would expect for Monero, it would take probably half a year for one developer to work on this. A developer who is super experienced with all the parts with Bisq and with Monero, which is very hard to find. And then you have only one currency. When you really would like to support 20 currencies or so, yeah, it doesn't scale. And the main reason also, even if you have it on the engineering side, you cannot run Bisq as a desktop application with 10 different coins implemented where you're downloading the transactions and all this. That doesn't, that's not really feasible in a decentralized way. And from usability, I mean, you could do it that you run the full nodes in the background and you're communicating with RPC or whatever, but that's from usability usually not really nice when you always have to start first Monero D to be able to trade with Monero or to do anything with Monero. And I think when atomic swap will be successful, then in a server-side model, where on a server you run all the, you don't have these resource limitations, you run just more servers to handle this, but then you don't gain anything on the decentralization and on the security side. I mean, a little bit you gain, but I think the trade-off that it's still on-chain, it costs more, it's slower. I think it's at the end not a good enough trade-off that people will move over from centralized exchanges to such centralized atomic swap exchanges. So it's very cool tech, but I think
have you been?
Sorry.
No, continue.
Could you repeat that? There was a connection loss on my side.
Have you been following the launch of Augur and see how they use the rep in a similar way to how the BSQ tokens are intended to be used as collateral, as bonds?
I have not followed it now. I followed 1 or 2 years ago, and I gave up in the meantime because I thought they got too much money to ever launch. But maybe I was wrong. No, I didn't have time to look to it. Very ambitious project. When it works out, could be cool, but I think chances for a blow up are quite high here on several areas, on the legal side probably also. But yeah, interesting to watch at least what happens, and hopefully it goes good. It would be a cool project when it's successful.
Yes. So the main, yeah, sorry, Manfred.
No, did you want to ask something?
No, I guess I wanted to say the same. Like you, so at the moment to enable growth within the client, it's not so much about the markets where we can push it from our side, but more from the technical perspective to make it easier to be able to trade on Bisq and to automate trading and to make it more comfortable to trade. And I think you want to mention one of the side projects that are in progress at the moment. Yeah, the mobile stuff. Yeah.
there's one developer working on a mobile notification application, and it's getting already close to a completed state. I've implemented the Bisq part, as it's integrated already in a branch in Bisq, so that you have a view where you can make the pairing with your mobile device and then set up which notification you want to receive. It's implemented at the moment is for offers, because when your offer gets taken, you get the notification to your mobile. When you're in a trade, all the important trade messages, you get a notification, and in a dispute, when you get the dispute message. There could be more, like, for instance, price alert or market alert. So when you can define, that's not implemented at the moment, but would not be very hard to implement this later, that you define which price range in which currency and which payment method you're interested to get notifications. And then when there is a new offer posted with euro trade buy Bitcoin trade with a certain price in a certain payment method, you would get the notification sent. And similar, we could have a price alert. So when the euro, dollar price, or whatever price moves over a certain range or whatever, that you get a notification. And we can extend this to anything what users demand. Technically, it works that there will be a relay node similar to the price node, where the Bisq user, so first you have to sync with your mobile. On the mobile app, you're creating a private key for the encryption, and you have your mobile token app ID, and you're with a QR code, you are handing this over to your Bisq application. Then the Bisq application knows your key, so it can encrypt the messages to you, and with the token ID, that gets sent to this relay server, and the relay server is sending this then to the Apple notification push service, and over that you get your notification. The messages are all encrypted, so Apple doesn't know anything what's the message. It will be only decrypted then on the mobile. The only thing from the privacy side was Apple learns is that you are receiving some messages on a Bisq application. Okay, and there's a timestamp, of course, so there could be theoretically some correlation. So those users who are super privacy concerned might not use it, but it's completely optional, of course, and nobody needs to use it, but it was often requested, and especially to get the message when your offer gets taken, or when in the trade or in the dispute, I think are very helpful, that you don't have to be online all the time. Of course, your application needs to run, so you have to still leave your application running on a computer. And as said, yeah, it's as the server is basically implemented, and the integration on Bisq is nearly complete, just fine-tuning and a little bit more testing needed. And Joachim is working on the Android application at the moment. That's also close to complete. So it could be that at least in 2 weeks or something like this, we could be already ready to launch it, but we have to sync up. Maybe we would like to implement also a little bit the new design. So it's
Manfred, regarding
you also have some news on the DAO, right, Manfred?
Yeah, with the DAO, it's also we've implemented basically nearly all the missing features. One feature was to change parameters like the whatever trading fees or any important value, which is normally hard-coded, can be changed over voting then, that I've implemented and tested. The bonding works already. The only small missing things is to confiscate the bond. So like an arbitrator who has set up bonds, and when we would confiscate these bonds by voting, that's a small missing feature which is not implemented yet, but probably in a few days. And I'm trying to get now the UI to a complete state, and go on with testing. And we will probably split it a little bit as soon as it's from our side what you can do on the UI, that we think it's basically there are no problems and no bugs anymore. We probably will start on testnet. That could be already in a few weeks, or at least end of August. So the voting end of August will probably happen already over the real DAO, over the application. Maybe we can do it in parallel just for safety. And in the time when we have launched it already on mainnet, on testnet, we will continue with writing more tests and make it really battle-proof. And yeah, but I think it looks good that when everything goes fine and no unexpected problems occur on testnet, that maybe in October or something, the mainnet 1 or 2 months after the testnet version, the mainnet will launch then.
So we're thinking starting 2019 with the DAO already online and working.
Yeah, hopefully earlier. I hope it's not end of the year already. So yeah, I hope at least October, maybe even September, and most of those features will be deactivated in the UI.
I'm thinking that, do we have anyone, any UX or UI experts we can try and get to have a quick look at how the voting is done and so on?
Yeah, so I will not take too much effort on the usability and UI because it's basically intended for a Bisq contributor. So we will not lose users because it's a little bit more complicated or whatever. I mean, and I think the voting, we see it already, but maybe that's another discussion. I think it has to be, and it's already becoming more clear when you're doing voting on the Bisq DAO. It's a management job. It's time consuming. You have to verify if what you're voting on was really valuable work and so on. And I think, yeah, initially most people think, yeah, sure, cool. It's something like democracy. You can vote there, and every Bisq user should use this for voting. But that's really, it doesn't make sense, and it's not the intention. Yeah, it's free. Everybody can do it. Of course.
That's why all the liquid democracy experiments fail, because most people can't be bothered to vote. But even so, it's got to be something that can scale to hundreds of DAO participants.
Yeah.
I don't think it's ever going to scale to millions. But you know, if you're just going to do it for 10 managers, 10 stakeholders, then you don't need a DAO. So, yeah, it has to be able to scale a bit more than that.
Yeah, I mean, for scaling larger, it will be then required to have something like delegation, that you can delegate your vote to somebody else. Because one problem what we already have now, when you have 20 contribution requests and some require to really verify the work, you need to spend some time. You need to check out what this person has done really, and it doesn't really scale that every contributor is doing this verification for every other contributor. I mean, it's usually like in normal companies, you have the people who are working with the other contributor, they know usually the value. And I think it emerges naturally that those will do the voting. And even if we don't have delegation when the other people don't vote, I mean, that's completely new idea from myself now. It's not much discussed, but I think we should go to a model that when you are not familiar with the work of the other and you don't have the time or don't want to spend the time to really get a clear idea of the value of this work, then you should just not vote at all. It doesn't mean that you don't trust this person. It's just that you don't have the information to make a meaningful decision here. And then it's usually 1 or 2 persons who are with whom somebody else is working. Like I'm working with SQ. The other people don't basically know what he's doing much. And of course, he can post all the GitHub commits and whatever, and you can watch all. But even then, you really need to understand the code. It's not only to see, wow, there was 20 or 50 commits or whatever. That doesn't mean anything. That's something like voting on lines of codes. We don't want this. I mean, the quality of one commit could be higher, like 20 commits, and 10,000 lines of code can be much less valuable, like 5 lines of code. And the quality can only be verified by really understanding everything. That takes quite a lot of time, and not everybody will have this time. So I think the solution is that only those people who actually work with the other, they are doing the voting, and that might be only 1 or 2 or 3. Everybody can do it. It's of course open, and everybody can invest this time and be able to participate. But I think naturally it will evolve in this direction that those are voting.
So basically, you're going to end up with elected representatives, and then ministers, and then a
no. I mean,
no, it's more
It's open. I mean, the difference is like
each specialty has a sort of group.
Yeah.
management.
I mean,
Yeah.
it's like in a company you have a department, and the head of the department make basically the decision if a freelancer get paid or not. And here, anybody can become this head of department. There can be 20 head of departments who are doing independently their decisions and with stake and reputation based voting. And that's the difference. But I think it's just not really feasible, and it would add a lot of work. That I had it already the last time. Yeah, there was a contribution from on translations or on the documents, and it would have taken me quite a lot of time to really go through all the commits and check the quality of the work. At the end, yeah, I trusted Chris because Chris was working with the guy who did the document stuff. That Chris accepted this as a good contribution, and it's then basically by delegation that to have implemented, to implement delegation would be cool in the DAO, but that's quite complex, and we don't want to work another half a year on the DAO. But later, in a later phase, that's for sure a feature which probably is needed. But I think at the moment you get the same effect when you just don't vote, because then in the percentage of the 1 or 2 persons who are voting, they have then basically 100% of the influence. So when you are just ignoring one request, you are giving the power to those who are actually voting.
Yeah, makes sense. Also, from my perspective, I think in the first version, or also in the later version, I think all the votes are blind votes, and so if you vote, you don't know how many people already voted for this compensation request.
The only thing what you could theoretically see on the blockchain are how many blind votes are, and the stake, how much stake people have put in.
But not on which side, if they voted against or for the compensation request.
Exactly. The content is encrypted. That will only get revealed or decrypted when the vote phase is over, so when you cannot vote anymore. And I mean, most of the features or most of the advanced features like bonding and so on will be, and the parameter change will be deactivated in the first launch because they are not really required, and we want more time for better testing and so on, and we don't want to delay the launch because we need more time to test those parts well. So those parts are only implemented in a kind of like prototype type quality to be sure that it basically works from the concept. And yeah, they're just lacking more sophisticated tests. But the voting and all the basic features like paying the trading fees, making normal transactions and trading, and making the compensation requests with voting, that will be implemented.
Cool. Just one more thing I wanted to add to the notification service, Manfred, to make it a little bit harder to track. Would it make sense to just delay the push messages on the server randomly and send it out? Because not all messages are time critical, also like price alerts. So if we have arbitration messages or trade messages, if they arrive 20 minutes later, might not make a huge difference. Or what do you think?
Yeah, I've not thought too much about this. I mean, Apple would need to observe the Bisq network and the blockchain to find kind of like correlation. And even then, I mean, of course, when an offer gets taken, it gets removed, but it can be also get removed by that the user get offline. So when you observe the Bisq network, you see an offer get removed, but you don't know if it was taken or not. Only the user will notice. So they don't learn too much of this. It's basically the main thing with privacy in Bisq. I mean, when Bitcoin or usage of Bisq is illegal, you're anyway on high risk because anybody could trade with you and be an undercover agent. So that's not recommended at all. When you live in a country where this becomes illegal, I'm not aware of any country at the moment, but in the past there have been time where some countries went a little bit stupid, and so I'm not so sure if you really. I mean, the main privacy laws what you have anyway is on the blockchain or with the transactions, and that most users don't care enough, don't understand, and don't know enough about privacy on the blockchain and how to avoid privacy leaks, and that even if you understand it and know all the details, it's quite cumbersome, and it kills usability quite a lot. For instance, then you really have to fund every trade independently, and at the end put it out and do some coin join to not merge it again with other trades. It becomes quite cumbersome, and otherwise, all your trades get connected on the blockchain, because the money what you have earned at one or what you get back from one trade might be used as input for the next trade. So those trades are connected, and as when you trade, when one of those inputs or unspent transaction outputs or whatever get connected with your real life identity because you used it at some centralized exchange or wherever, then you are de-anonymized.
Right, but say you do crypto to crypto on Bisq, and you use newly generated addresses that can't be linked back. Privacy, it's very, very hard for your privacy to be put at risk in that case, right? Say you do Bitcoin to Monero, you use clean Monero addresses and Bitcoin addresses that aren't linked to a real person anywhere. How can that ever be traced back to someone? How can that diminish your privacy? Say you're in Venezuela or in Pakistan or whatever.
Now, when you're especially with altcoin trades, or you are not leaking any privacy, real life identity privacy to even the other peer. With fiat, of course, the other peer at least know then your name, depending on the payment method. But with most, it's the case. And with altcoins, you don't have this problem. It's still, it happens usually not inside.
Say you start, even for fiat trades, say you get a feature phone, M-Pesa feature phone in Kenya, and you trade with your phone number, and that phone is rechargeable, bought anywhere. It doesn't have to be tied to any identity. Obviously, the money is there, so you can move it to another M-Pesa account very quickly. It's you can do fiat to Bitcoin with a lot of privacy. If you
sorry, when I was negative, I just wanted to
and definitely a million times more privacy than if you go to a centralized exchange and go through KYC, AML, enhanced due diligence, all of that compliance stuff.
Yeah, I just want to say, I mean, you get quite a lot of privacy, of course, in Bisq, and the weakest point at the end is this Bitcoin part. So when you're not really taking care how you are funding your wallet, and when you're sending out from Bisq the money, and you are spending this somewhere where you get identified, then it could be traced back and your trades could be connected. Even then it's blurry, because of course there's no 100% guarantee. It's difficult to and the other things like making with timing behavior to observe the Bisq network and then say that might be the offer of this user and he received the Apple notification. Of course, there is some risk there as well, but I think those people who are worried about this, they just shouldn't use the notification service, because probably they don't want to have it over Apple anyway, or Google. And it's it's a mandatory feature for people who prefer usability and who are not super paranoid with privacy at the end. Because I mean, a small delay could be implemented. To have a delay which is more like 20 seconds or 10 seconds, I think has the usability problem that you test it out, you do something and then nothing happened on your phone and you think it's a bug. So I think that's the main issue. When it's just 1 or 2-3 seconds, okay, then you think it's a little bit slow. That would be acceptable, but I'm not sure if you gain really much, and just adds a little bit complexity, and I'm not sure if the costs are worth it.
Yeah.
But sure, we could do it. Not a big deal.
Yeah. Regarding the privacy, maybe we should come up with a document how to do a perfect privacy-aware trade with Bisq, on also not only just the Bisq part, but also the Bitcoin part, because I read through the responses from we just integrated a survey link in our latest release on 0.7.1. And I read through the free text form responses, and most of them are about privacy. So the people who trade on Bisq are really privacy. They want to do it in a private way, and maybe we could add some more documentation in general, so more people who really want to do a super private trade, a Bitcoin trade, Bitcoin fiat trade, can find this information and then use Bisq for it, as it's the best way to do it at the moment.
On that topic, you mentioned stable coins in the past, Manfred. Since crypto to crypto is much more private than crypto to fiat, or at least using banking, Bitcoin to a stable coin might be a very efficient way to do increased privacy, even if it requires the second step afterwards to redeem.
Yeah, actually, I'm very interested in this because looking for alternatives to banking systems, because that's the weakest element in Bisq. And we would like to find real alternatives, but besides face-to-face trade and cash by email, and some exotic but interesting payment methods like Hellcash, I think that we really should start to implement. Maybe you can say a little bit more about this, Felix. You probably know it better.
Hellcash, it works really well, not with Bisq, and there's quite a few services in Spain and some of the European countries that will allow you to, just with a 4-digit code, I think, and a phone number, withdraw at an ATM. So it's quite fast. Not cheap though, but for small amounts it makes sense. But also there's as you say, there's other exotics like Amazon credit, Steam vouchers, a bunch of stuff like that I was looking quite a bit at Bitrefill. I don't know if you've heard of them, but one of the first to use Lightning in the top, and they have quite a few interesting things. I mean, as long as it's fungible and denominated in dollars or euros, it can be used as a stable coin.
Yeah, I think I expect that at some point some government, maybe in Argentina when they have the next default, or whatever, at some point they will start with a government e-currency. I would not call it cryptocurrency because there's probably nothing to do with Bitcoin. And I don't expect too much that they make it really interoperable with Bitcoin and cryptocurrency, but maybe they are too stupid to make it so bad as fiat, and it will be at least much better, like the current fiat and banking system. Like, for instance, that they have more usable APIs and so on. And that could be the first step, that you are going over those currencies, even if you don't like them and support them, because probably they will be super surveillance tools and built for surveillance mainly. But they could play basically this role of a stable coin as well.
In the European Union, the payments directive forces banks to open their APIs. So once you have instant SEPA, like faster payments in the UK, plus an open API, it's going to be very easy to create micropayment apps. And the moment you have, a million micropayment apps like Revolut or Bisq or all these others that are running around, it shouldn't be too hard to combine that with the trading mechanism like Bisq, right? Maybe with a API.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, do you know any timeline when this API stuff should be really implemented?
Yeah, well,
I think the 10 years.
Time limit has already run out, and as usual, governments are slow. I mean, SEPA Instant was supposed to be live since April in all of, and very few banks are using it, but they still have a year to put it online. But for example, WhatsApp is already running an instant payment system in India. I think someone mentioned that they're thinking of bringing it to other countries. Well, once you have, just like WeChat in China, WeChat Pay in China, once you have, 1 billion, 2 billion WhatsApp users being able to make microtransactions, it should be relatively simple to use that for this.
I'm just, I don't expect too much from this fintech. For me, from my experience so far, the fintech companies are even worse like the banks, so they are less secure and they treat you even worse. Like we got some reports from N26 or from other like Venmo and so on. You get robbed by somebody else because of their flawed security, and then they treat you like a criminal, confiscate your funds, don't give you any information and so on. So it's really completely completely bad, or just close your account without telling you why, without an explanation and so on. So yeah, and they all get forced into KYC and surveillance regime. So I'm not sure if they will add really much. And of course, also such a government, when a government will issue some digital currency, it will be also in the KYC regime and so on. That will not add anything.
Why don't we start a stable coin? It'd be really easy.
Yeah.
Use Bisq to make a market. Buy at 0.99, sell at 101, and it doesn't have to be. It can be a colored coin or an Ethereum ERC20.
I had an idea, and I still have not gave up, but it's another big project, and will not have time to implement this. I don't know if we talked. Did we talk already once about this idea? I can explain it quickly.
No, it'd be quite easy to do, right? The problem is,
yeah, I would not say it's super easy, but we could basically launch 2 new different color coin tokens like BSQ, but they should be separated because otherwise BSQ get the risk of their hedging and so on. And one is the hedging coin, which is not stable, and that's volatile. And the people who are keeping, also the main idea is, for what I believe is that the stable coins only work like hedging, and hedging costs money. And the people who want the hedge, they have to pay the fee. And most stable coins are hiding this fee or externalizing the fee to somebody else, or just make a Ponzi and at some point it crashes. And but when you build a system where the stablecoin users have to pay a small fee for their hedging, and which is depending on the market. When the market is super volatile, the fee is higher. When the market becomes more stable, the fee is lower. And then there is a secondary, separated entity which is doing the hedging, and which the people who are willing to take the risk and who are earning the fees. And we could implement this both in a color coin token, very similar to BSQ. So on Bitcoin, basically. And you can convert from one to the other. It's basically a little bit like a sidechain, but they're technically not sidechain. They're just these color coins. And you can burn. So let's say you buy, let's call the one that's the hedge token, and the other is the stablecoin token. So you are buying on the market or some hedge tokens, whatever it's the market price, against Bitcoin. And then you can burn this hedge token, and by burning you get the right to issue new stablecoin tokens. In the stablecoin is $1, let's say. So you're calculating, let's say the hedge token is also $1 at the moment. One token is $1, and then you go from the hedge token to the stable token by burning. Also, that's a trustless exchange. You're burning on the one side, and with that you can prove that you have the application can prove you have burnt this token, and you have the right to issue the token on the other chain. And it's a little bit like the compensation request, but in a different manner. That one is.
Why don't we add USD Tether? Why don't we ask?
We had it in the past, but nobody was using it.
Horrible in some ways, but might be,
Yeah. Now we could add it again when somebody make a request. We had it in and many other stablecoin tokens, but they were never used basically, and then they get cleaned out. But yeah, with that model, you would have then, and the conversion between their hedge token and the stablecoin will be their exchange rate. So when it's 1-1, you get 1, and then maybe later, half a year later, the hedge token is maybe €10, and when you go out again from the stablecoin token, you use this new exchange rate. And when you have, for instance, converted $1,000 to 1,000 hedge tokens, and then 1,000 stable coin tokens, and 1 year later, the value of the hedge token is maybe $10. So when you go out with your 1,000 stablecoin tokens, you only get 100 hedge tokens with burning. So you burned $1,000 tokens, which are $1, and you get then 100 hedge token because you use the actual exchange rate, and then you can sell it on the market to Bitcoin again. And with that model, the only risk is that when the hedge token will go up very quickly in price or whatever, you could abuse this for manipulation and try to trick the system. But when the token holders of this hedge token, they are basically the ones who are taking the risk and who need to carry they are basically interested that they avoid such manipulation and that they avoid that it's super volatile and people are buying at this moment. And when they go out, an important feature to avoid this manipulation risk is when you go back that you have a comparison. How it is? Sorry, I just adopted the idea a week ago. Now, also when you're buying the stable tokens, you get the fee determined, what you have to pay when you go out again, and that's depending on the current market price. It's like you make a hedge contract, and at the moment, the risk of the market will determine the price of your hedging. And then whenever you go back, if it's a month later or half a year later, you are paying this fee. So your fee is calculable. You can calculate with this, even if the market risk would have changed and maybe the current fee in half a year would be much higher. But you can calculate with this and you have a fixed fee. And I think that should avoid most of those possible attacks with manipulation and with trying to abuse this. But it's a complex. I have no plan at all to implement this, but I think it could be possible to do it. And then the next problem, even if we had it, you need to get users, you need to get volume. Because only with volume it gets stable. Also, when the hedge token is very small.
Start with that. If it's got 10 users, it's volatile.
And you can attack it.
Yeah, Manfred Gass is asking in the chat if that's similar to the Steemit model, where they have the Steem cryptocurrency in the which works in the platform, and the Steem dollar, which is a stable coin. But I'm personally not familiar with the Steemit model. Okay.
I tried in the past a few times all these projects from Daniel Larima to understand, and they're all super complex and also carry always something for me not very sympathetic with get rich scheme, and EOS I think is also on his shoulders, and I was never willing to invest more time in this project. I think technically it's pretty interesting and for sure some interesting ideas, but I'm not really familiar with it.
Right, guys. So we've got 5 minutes left.
Just one quick question. As we had this survey and the input that we got was quite interesting. I was thinking about setting up another survey with the same content, which we could send out by Twitter for everyone. So we don't mix people who really finish trades and give feedback and people who maybe are just interested in the platform, but still it might be interesting to not only get a input of real traders, but also for everyone who is within the Bisq kind of community or interested in the Bisq platform itself.
Very good idea.
Yeah, it's quite easy to do, and it was quite. I was quite surprised on the input. Sorry, could you repeat?
You can even do surveys on a YouTube video.
Yeah, really? I didn't know that.
Yeah. Next time we
try that. Perfect. Yeah. Besides that, nothing from my side. Besides the fact that I already started working on the redesign in a separate branch for the client. But let's see how quickly it's finished. Fingers crossed.
Looking forward. That will be a great update with the fantastic new design from Pedro.
Yeah.
A quick question. I mean, what would you think if we try to invite for the next or one of the upcoming growth call some Bisq users and make a little bit of kind of like a feedback session? What do you think should be improved, or questions, whatever? And anybody is welcome to join. It should be just a little bit organized that we know in advance if there is somebody joining.
I'd love that, but I'd be in China. I don't know what my internet connection is going to be like. So I think YouTube is blocked. I'll get a VPN, but I don't know if I'll even be able to be on the call. So, but I love the idea.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, I think we should. Yeah, sorry, Manfred.
If anybody who is watching the call is interested to join, and any question, any feedback you want to give, everything is welcome. Open format, whatever we talk. and it can be also a little bit off topic of Bisq or whatever when you want to talk about whatever stuff going on in the Bitcoin space.
Gus GG just said that he's in, so great.
Yeah, maybe we also could gather questions up front already, so we're not just having questions at the call, but already kind of a portfolio of questions we could then answer during the call. If some people can't attend and still want the questions to be answered. So
yeah, perfect. Yeah, looking forward to have discussion with Gus.
And of course, comments on YouTube are always very welcome. We always try to answer them, as well as Slack, Reddit, and any other social media.
Okay, perfect. Yeah.
Right. So thanks everyone for coming, and see you next week. Hopefully.
Okay.
See you. Bye.